no such thing as passive income. Everything happens for a reason. Everything's a blessing. The whole neighborhood was devastated. They told us that you didn't walk in. Not only good ethic, it's good business. I didn't use anything as an excuse to stop. Take massive action.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave Menz, Laundromat Millionaire here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I am here today with my wonderful wife and co-host, Carla Menz. We are honored to have a very cool guy with us today from Jonesboro, Arkansas. Carla, I don't know about you, but I'm excited for our guest to be on here today. He's got an inspiring story. He's been through some perseverance, and he's overcome that perseverance. He's got a lot of what I call grit to him, and he's just a regular old guy too. You're not going to find this guy on TV, at least not today, I don't think. But down the road, you may, for sure. But that's the type of guest we like to have on this show, with someone that's a regular person in regular everyday America, and he's also a very inspiring young man. And I'm excited to get started.
I am excited, especially Johnathan. I'm amazed by your passion and the reasons behind why you do what you do. I found that very inspiring, and I'm excited to share that with our guests as we talk to you and help you inspire others. So first, let me just tell a little bit about you. So just so our viewers know who you are. So our guest today is Johnathan Russell. He is from Jonesboro, Arkansas. He is into real estate investment. He's also a realtor. He's been doing this about 9 years now. That's right. About 9 years.
Right.
And he started with just one property, moved into it, flipped it. And that has just spun off into now you are at, is it 71 doors? Is that right?
Yeah. 71 grand total, counting everything. Yep.
Very cool.
That's amazing. And he's gone through a lot, and he's going to be sharing that with us today. And hopefully we can all learn from his grit and his unwillingness to give up no matter what he faces. He just gets in there and gets it done. So anyway, let's start off with, and also I should include, he is also a family man like my husband. So we all know out there how hard it is to balance work life and family. And as an entrepreneur, your job doesn't stop. It is 24 hours a day. So to find time for, you have 2 sons and a beautiful wife, and to find time for them and to still spend time with them, that is amazing. Just to balance that all. We speak from experience.
Absolutely. There is no doubt about it. For our guests that are listening to this is one of our earlier episodes in the Laundromat Millionaire Business Podcast. And if you haven't heard mine and Carla's story, it's a 2-part series. It's the first episode. There's 2 parts to it. So yeah, go check that out. But we feel like, Johnathan, we feel like we relate to you a lot in a lot of ways as people that are, very passionate about our family. Our marriage being strong is important to us, raising our children to be amazing adults. I always say in this world, we don't raise children, we raise adults. And that's kind of how we view things. So we feel like we relate to you a lot in the sense that we know that being a husband and a father, and not just a husband and a father, but a good husband and a great father, are very important to you. So we feel like we relate in that way. But listen, we understand that you've experienced a fair amount of adversity in your life, and you've persevered through these times to become a successful entrepreneur and business owner. We can definitely relate to that as well. Before we get started with your story, though, and to kind of the meat and potatoes of it, we always like to go back and kind of get to know people's backstory a little bit. So can you take a minute and just kind of give us a little bit of information on your backstory, growing up as a kid and what your life was like?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you all for having me on here. I'm humbled and grateful for the opportunity, and I hope I can live up to that intro y'all just gave me. But like you already said, I'm from Jonesboro, Arkansas, born and raised. Middle-class family growing up. We wasn't rich, but I never did without. Always had whatever I needed. My family, my mom and dad instilled a very strong work ethic in me. They was both entrepreneurs as well.
Oh, really?
And
what type of entrepreneurs were they?
My dad had a lawn care service for years, and that's all what I did all growing up on the summers and the hot days, working out there. So
Nice.
That's a hard job.
Yes,
that's like real work.
Yes. It taught me a lot about the business side of things, but it also taught me that I don't want to push a lawnmower outside for the sauna.
Right.
So
especially in the Arkansas heat, right?
Yes, exactly.
Humidity. It's not the heat, it's the humidity.
And I was extremely into auto racing, dirt track racing, just my compulsive behavior. I just got all in on that. Same way I'm in business now. That's pretty much what I did full time for a couple of years there, my late teens, early 20s. Then kind of.
Did you actually do the racing or like working on the cars?
Both. It was dirt truck racing. We traveled the country, and my brother is still very active in the industry. Yeah.
Have you gotten your kids into it, or are they interested? I know
we were talking about it. Yeah, my wife married this. She's kind of iffy about it, but I'm all in for it. So hopefully we'll get them going pretty soon with some go-karts and some smaller stuff like that.
Very cool. Very cool.
But yeah, like I said, I did that, obsessed with it for a long time. Then kind of transitioned out of that. Then graduated high school, went to college for a semester and realized that wasn't for me. So I am a college dropout. I did go back later because I just had a few hours and got my associate's degree just to finish it out. But so in between there, I actually got my CDL's license, a truck driver, and owned my own trucking company, which I say trucking company, but it was just me, one truck, drove it, operated everything.
That's how it all starts.
Right, exactly. And that was fun, but I just didn't enjoy the driving part of it, so I bailed on that. And looking back now, I would have just worked on scaling the business and hired a driver. But back then, I was thinking I had to do everything myself, so I just quit that, and then I actually went to work for a company driving their truck back and forth from Jonesboro to Chicago, and actually did that up until just a few years ago, and kind of started the real estate in between there.
So what was it like trying to start a real estate investment portfolio, I guess I would say? I'm sure it started small, as all things do. What was it like trying to start that I assume you were an over-the-road truck driver?
Right. It was over the road, just a couple of days a week. I was home majority of the time, gone 2 or 3 nights a week. But actually it was perfect because I just listened to audio books religiously. So, driving 14 hours a day, you can soak up a lot of knowledge. And that's basically how I'm just self-taught in the real estate industry, just from all those miles and miles of driving, just constantly podcasts, audio books, whatever I could get a hold of.
That makes total sense. My story is very similar. I wasn't a truck driver, but I think, one of the things I've learned about getting to know and talking to awesome entrepreneurs like yourself is that a lot of our paths are, all of our paths are unique and different, but a lot of our paths are very similar in a sense of I see a lot of consistencies in optimizing time and finding good use of time. And, we could listen to the radio, and I'm sure you do a little bit like me, but for the most part, that's just my way of decompressing a little bit when I'm driving. But 99% of the time when I'm driving, I'm listening to some type of a podcast or audiobook or something like that, trying to increase my knowledge. I have to drive, I have to be in the car. And obviously as a professional truck driver, you had to do that more than most people. And that, whenever I find people that are successful in business and entrepreneurship, it almost always, points back to a few traits. And that's one of them that I see real consistently. Do you see that too when you're kind of networking with people and working with mentors and things like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just always, that drive that entrepreneurs have, just constantly trying to improve, constantly trying to better whatever you're doing, which is, a good thing. That's what makes people successful. The flip side of that could be that sometimes you're not happy with what you have. There's actually been a goal this year. I made a conscious effort to celebrate the wins, even no matter how small they are.
Absolutely.
Go out to eat, take vacation.
Yes.
Really celebrate it doesn't mean you have to stop growing. It doesn't mean you have to stop striving for perfection or betterness, but celebrate the journey as you go. And I'm talking to myself there because I've struggled with that, and I've made it a priority this year to do that.
Yeah. When you say you struggle with it, what do you mean by that? Do you struggle with, I know I struggle with like, I call it decompressing because I'm just wound so tight.
Right.
Always
right.
go.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say, why do you work so much? Well, to me, it's not work. This is who I am. This
Right.
is just my life. This is living my life. Do you relate to that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100% relate. Just it's almost impossible to flip the switch, to go back and forth because you bring the work home with you, and then on stressful days you bring that home. So you just try to leave it at the office, which is almost impossible to do as an entrepreneur because it's 24/7. But it is a struggle that I think we all deal with, and true successful people are able to find that balance.
Does your wife help you with the business too, or does she have her own career?
She's a stay-at-home mom. She takes care of the household, so her job is a million times harder than mine, wrangling the kids all day.
Absolutely.
But she's very supportive emotionally, and just lets me vent and talk to her. And so she's amazing and very supportive.
Yeah, I know Dave he says that a lot of times I helped him to be an entrepreneur, kind of like with your wife. He knew he could devote all his time to that and all of his energy to that because things were being taken care of at home. It sounds like that's what Meredith does for you. You don't have to worry about the boys and the stuff at home and getting them to soccer practice or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can just focus on, growing your business.
Okay, exactly. I think it's important to have that because all the chaos of the day-to-day business world to come home to that foundation, it's crucial to me. Like I wouldn't be able to do without it.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. She's exactly right. I say all the time, I think it comes across as bragging. I say all the time, I'm always on. I'm 150 miles an hour. But what people don't understand about that is I'm that way about my marriage and my family first. But I don't want to say check out, but I can focus, 90% probably of my energy on building our businesses, growing our businesses, serving the community, things like that, because I know my babies are okay, because I know my wife is okay. And we absolutely are big fans of celebrating the wins. We're big fans of taking family experiences and vacations, and whether they're 1 or 2 day or week long or what have you. So I have a question for you. I don't know that there's a ton of truck drivers on the road that are dreaming of building a real estate portfolio. So how did that happen for you? I mean, were you always interested in, obviously you were always interested in entrepreneurship from a sense of, or I assume because you grew up in a family, of mother and father that are entrepreneurs. So I got 2 questions for you. One of them is your upbringing and being raised by business owners and entrepreneurs. Did that spur you towards it, or do you feel like that would have happened even if you hadn't been raised by entrepreneurs? And then the second part of the question is, were you always interested in building a real estate portfolio, or how did that come about? How did that passion come from?
Right. Yeah. The first part there, I'm not sure about if I wasn't raised by entrepreneurs. I would assume that I would still have that same desire to do it, but I really don't know. Being raised in a different environment, but absolutely, I was always 100% entrepreneur minded. Like just always wanted to do something on my own. Then as far as, so when I got out of my trucking company, went to work for that company, that was 2012. And at that same time, I bought my first house. That was 2012. That was door number 1. It was a HUD foreclosure, and really had no intentions of buying it as an investment. It was just really the only thing we could afford. And I think back then HUD had to have $50 money down, $350 money down. I didn't have it, so I had to borrow that from my mom and dad to get that. And then so we got it. And then so that kind of got the first house. And then I did all the work myself on it for 10 months there, then lived in it, sold it a few years later, made a substantial profit. And that's when kind of the light bulb went off. I was like, well, that was easy, and I enjoyed it. And so that's when I really started digging deep into the real estate. learning and just soaking up everything I could about it. And the more I read and the more I learned, the more I lean towards the rental side of it, because there's so many different avenues within real estate. But the rental side of it was always the most appealing for me, just that consistent cash flow coming in every month. So I bought that house. That was 2012. We sold it in 2015, I believe. Then we bought another one, kind of did the same thing, sold it in 2018. But in between there, in 2016, started buying the first rental. So then just started buying aggressively from there.
Do you do a lot of the work on them yourself, or do you contract everything out? Like, are you handy around the house kind of thing? Are you a fix-it man?
I was initially, you know, we did everything, literally everything. But as we've grown, I've, you know, just been forced to outsource everything now, just to make it more streamlined and try to get the most use out of my personal time.
There's another thing that I see consistently with successful business owners and entrepreneurs is leverage. You know,
right.
when we talk about leverage, a lot of times people associate that with financing and borrowing money, which is certainly one form of leverage. But you know, there's such a thing as leveraging your time, leveraging resources, leveraging a team, leveraging other people's time. And it sounds like that was really kind of a pivotal point for you. That I don't know if it was conscious or subconscious, but at some point in the journey you transitioned, and it was probably a slow or long transition, I would guess. I know it was for me. I'm guessing that you were in a situation where you were doing the work yourself, and you realized I can only swing one hammer at a time. Is that fair?
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Just you get bogged down into the day-to-day, like the common quote, working in your business instead of on your business.
Right.
You know, I basically just created a job for myself for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had to break out of that. And I think you go through different stages. You constantly get to a point you have to break through that. Just recently, last year in 2020, was the first time I turned everything over to a property manager. So that was just another step of of the growth of just having to outsource more and more.
Very good. I had assumed that you were managing your own properties. Sounds like you were for a while, and recently that was another transition for you.
Right. Yeah, I did. And I still manage a handful myself, just it's been long-term tenants that they're good to work with. But the vast majority, we use third-party management.
At what point during this, so I know you were a truck driver and then you kind of flipped your first house, but I know you're a realtor now. At what point during this process, did you become a realtor? And do you recommend that for anyone getting involved in real estate investment? Like, what made you decide to become a realtor too?
Yeah, real estate license came in the dates run together on me sometimes. I think it was 2019 I got the realtor license. And I've always believed in used realtors. I used one up until then that I always bought through. And it's just good to have that relationship. So whether you have your license or not, I definitely recommend hooking up with a good realtor. But as far as me, it was just a decision of, I've always treated it like another job, because it's a full-time, you know, even on your own transactions, that's something that, you know, if you have time to do it and have time to work it, it's just another good stream for you. And just being vertically integrated kind of all circles around real estate. So that's why it made a good fit for me. So to answer your question, if somebody was trying to be full-time in real estate, I think it makes sense, because that gives you that extra stream and extra. But if you have a regular W-2 job and you're trying to build your empire on the side, I would recommend just using a realtor.
So I guess when you close on properties, it saves you that commission. Now you get to keep that.
Right, exactly. It's just another revenue stream out of the same. And that was kind of the thought process I had, like, how can I do the same thing I'm doing except make more money? And just the realtor was kind of the obvious solution up front.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor and take a quick second and kind of, you mentioned the words vertically integrated in business.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain to the audience what I mean by that? I suspect that maybe a few people listening to this aren't real familiar with what you mean by that. I'm
sure there's different ways to explain it, but the easiest way to make sense to me is you think about a tree, and like the main trunk of the tree is my real estate, my rentals. But so then you kind of branching off. So the branch, other realtor, branch, eventually for a maintenance department, eventually for a property management company. So vertically integrated, you grow your business, you grow different streams, but they all feed together. They all like a tree. They just all kind of grow together. Instead of having real estate and opening up a restaurant and just different things and having different trees, they kind of divide your attention. And it's hard to make all those healthy. But if you have it all together and all vertically integrated, you can make it all healthy and kind of focus. You're still focusing on one thing, but it's all growing together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a fantastic explanation. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. For those of you that know our story, we've done that as well, kind of in the laundromat industry. Even our real estate portfolio is pretty closely associated with our laundromats, and we own several of the buildings that our stores are in. And we do have some one-offs of some private real estate investments as well. But yeah, we've done the laundromats, then we've done the drop-off service, and then the pickup and delivery. And what I find is again, with successful entrepreneurs is they're hyper-focused on one thing, but that one thing doesn't necessarily mean one thing, if that makes sense. And I see a lot of vertical integration because I always tell people with our businesses, the best way to take one successful business and make it better is to build another successful business on the back of that first business, whether that's leveraging existing assets, leveraging time where you're in the same industry, things like that. I just find tremendous efficiencies in that. Have you seen that as well?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, go back to your point about just the one thing. Like that's, I'm sure you read the book, The One Thing. And
absolutely.
Slide Edge is similar. Just one thing, doing it, over and over, compounds. And then, I like to say multitasking is a myth. Like it's almost impossible, or it is impossible to do two things at once. Like whatever you're focused on, that's what's going to get attention. And that's going back to being vertically integrated. To me, that's so important because I would be too scatterbrained if I had a million different things going on. Like I like it all within one, be diversified within the industry, but just have one industry that you get to your, whatever your goals are, whether it's 1 million, 10 million, a billion, whatever that goal is, just focus on it until you get there. Then if you want to do other things, then that's your prerogative.
Yeah, I know that's huge for us as we're always looking for, okay, so within our business, what are other possible income streams? And I noticed you mentioned that too. That's one more income stream. I do have a question. So you mentioned your first property, it was a HUD, but you've had several properties since then. What advice could you give someone who is looking into the real estate investment market? How do you find these properties? Where do you find these deals? What do you look for? And what are the red flags that say, ooh, I don't want that one? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, the main thing is knowing your criteria. Like, know what you want. Because if you call a realtor or call anybody, just say you're looking for a deal, they're going to just ignore you just because they don't know what you want. But like when I started, my company's Premier Properties, me and my realtor at the time called it the Premier Quadrant. We literally just had a square mile part of town. That's all I focused on. That's all I bought in. And
how long was that for?
I'm sorry.
How long was that for? How long did you only focus on that small
that was a good 3 years, I would say. Okay. So probably 2016 to 2019. That's all we did.
Why did you make your area so small? Like, was it because of the marketability of that area, or was it so that your properties were close together? Again,
just going back to the same thing I said, kind of I can get scatterbrained if I start focusing on, okay, let's look at up here in different county or here. Like I just like to focus on, and I just got really, really comfortable in that area, and I can know exactly what stuff would rent for, what stuff should be bought for. And in a smaller market like Jonesboro, you quickly become known to buy. So anytime a property came up, they would say, okay, Johnathan will buy that. That's his. When something pops up, they're going to say, okay, he told me that's what he's looking for, so I'm going to call him. So like, if y'all was looking for laundromat space, they need a certain square footage building, certain price, So if I see something that pops up, I'll say, that's exactly what Dave wants. I'm calling him. But Dave just called me and said, hey, if you find a good deal, send it my way. I'm not going to have any idea what to send you.
Mm-hmm. So you said you did that for a few years. I assume you eventually branched out. I know you, I know from following you a little bit, your story that you're now in other states.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that journey as far as evolving and growing outside of that local market? I assume you built a network of, I don't know if you want to call it referrals or what have you, so you could find those deals, or what did that process look like?
Yeah. Just as of last Friday, we closed. I have a partner on some multifamily stuff, and we closed on our first property in Missouri. So that's nice. Exciting. It's the first one out of state.
Congratulations.
First one, thank you. First one out of Jonesboro even. So that's a big step, and just kind of grow from there. And again, kind of what spurred, to answer your question about what spurred that, was really going back to last year when I handed things off to the property management company. That took all that management off my plate, and I was able to focus on actually working on the business and growing the business. And that's there's a direct correlation between those two for sure.
I know you've talked about your passion for providing good quality housing to the people in Jonesboro, which I found very touching, that you're not all about the money, not all about the profit, but it's really about the service to your community. Can you kind of speak on that and where that comes from? Is that a value that was instilled by your parents? Did you rent someplace that was horrible? Like, where does this come from?
Right. No, definitely. I mean, the values absolutely come from my parents. That's without a doubt. And really just providing that good service. Because when I first started, I didn't personally experience it, but there's just so many stories about slumlords and bad living conditions. Yeah. And I just refuse to be that. I've always said that if that's the only way you can make money, then I just won't do it. Like, it's just not worth it. But it's not. And, besides all the good things that you just said, that it does make you, no matter what, you can lay your head at night knowing you're providing quality service. When tenants call, their stuff gets fixed, because at the end of the day, they're paying for a service. They're paying for you to take care of those things. Also, besides all that good stuff, it's actually good business. Like, you make more money by providing good service. So that's, I don't know, for some reason, people think real estate's different. But if you go to a restaurant, it's terrible service, that restaurant's not going to last. But for some people act like real estate rentals is different, but it's not. It's just a business like anything else. If you provide that service, you're able to charge premium rents. You're able to keep your vacancies low, all the above.
I know. So this past year with COVID and everything, my husband, Dave, started to get a little bit bored, which is always a problem. And he decided to delve into he thought, maybe we should have some rentals. Let's look at some investment properties, start rentals. And we quickly purchased 3, like bam, 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 or whatever. So we actually, for the first time, we'd always had like commercial real estate, but we just recently, in the past year or so, got our first rental property. And we've decided that it's kind of a pain in the butt to deal with renters and stuff. So how do you handle all of that? Like, what are your horror stories? And, what if you have to evict people? Like, what's the process for that? I don't know anything about it, but we might be facing that.
Right. I understand. And you just have to, and I honestly enjoy it. Now, like I said, it got to a point where it was too much for me and I had to outsource it. But I seriously, literally enjoyed it, just dealing with the tenants and dealing with people. And because at the end of the day, they're all people. And if you treat people with respect, 9 times out of 10, they're going to treat you back with respect. They're always going to have the bad apples. But, knock on wood, I've only had to do a few evictions, and only one of those went all the way to court. So that's kind of the fear most people have. And it does happen, but it's just not common. Like, I've never once got a call in the middle of middle of the night for a stopped up toilet that everyone talks about. So I don't know.
the
I don't know where all these stopped up
2 a.m. Right?
Yeah, I don't know where all these 2 a.m. stopped up toilets are, but they never happened to me. So
That's great.
That's nice.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
they
we
might
get
not
2
because I said
a.m.
that,
We get 2 a.m. This washer's leaking or whatever. Like, you didn't shut the door all the way.
Yeah, one of our laundromats is open 24/7, 365 days a year, and we have attendants there during the day, but overnight hours, it's what we call self-serve, so it's unattended. So yeah, my number's on the wall in that store, and if there's a problem at 2 a.m., even if it's your pop machine took a quarter from me, I get a call and they want me to come up there, give them their quarter.
Yeah.
So I always say, well, this is what I signed up for. But
well,
anyway,
the good thing to say there is that's how come, not everybody does it. That's what, like when you go through bad stuff like that, I just constantly think like, okay, that's how come the neighbor's not doing this. Like, that's how come I am willing to do this. That's how come it separates us. So.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly agree more. So you say that you've completed 71 doors worth of projects in a fairly short period of time, it sounds like. I mean, this is roughly, 5 years? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, 2016 is when we kind of started aggressive.
Okay. Yeah.
So how many of these 71 doors do you still actually own? I know, so the first couple you flipped and sold, right?
Yeah. First, so like the 71s, including the flips that we've done, and also just last year started some new construction spec building. So we had 2 of those going.
And those are some nice houses, by the way. I saw some pictures of those.
Thank you. Yeah,
very well done. Those are not cheap homes. Good job.
Thank you. No, they're high quality, and they one's sold or pending, and we're starting another one. Actually, as of this morning, got the next lot under contract. So that'll be once we get rolling, close on that, that'll be door number 72.
Wow.
But we'll, so as of today, we own 67 rentals still under. No, I'm sorry, 60 rentals as far as still under management as of today.
Gotcha.
No wonder you needed a property management
company.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how long did you manage those yourself? And I'm sure you had help, but I mean, when you said, I think you said you recently just turned it over to management company.
Yeah, just last year.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that was a lot. I mean, 60 on your own, that's got to be a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. And which, we've been growing this past year. I think we was at 50 when we turned over property management. So we've grown, since we've handed it over. But
right.
How did you deal with like the maintenance issues and all that? I can't imagine you were getting up and going and did you have just people that you contracted? Did you have full-time employees, part-time employees? How did you manage it before you had the property management company?
Yeah, I just had subs, contractors that I dealt with. I tried a full-time employee for a brief period, and that was a disaster. So I learned from that, and we just stuck with subs. And I've had good relationships with giving people consistent work, and they've treated me very well, and they're good to me.
So for all those properties, if your tenant had an issue prior to the property management company, if your tenant had an issue, did they call you directly? Did you have like a phone service that took messages? How did you deal with that? They
called me directly. But like I said, it really, maybe I kind of have a skewed view of it just because I love the industry so much, but it honestly wasn't that bad to me. I didn't get the crazy calls that people talk about. Again, there was always the bad apples, but I just worked on that relationship building with the tenant. Somebody had trouble paying, like if they don't have the rent, you just talk with them. If they communicate with you, you can work with them and figure out what you need to do to solve the issue. But when they just go silent on you, that's when you just got to evict, which is like a knock on wood. I've only had to do that a few times.
Well, I think that's also a credit to you, because I know in our business, in any business, there's parallels. And I know in our business, I hear, I do a lot of laundromat coaching and consulting in our industry and things like that. And I hear over and over again people that are in the industry that are maybe not necessarily running their stores or their businesses the way that they should or the way that they could. And I hear all the time what a headache it is. So I think the fact that you see it as a blessing, not a curse. And I suspect, because I've seen a few of your properties, that your properties are all well done. They're all well taken care of. If you're buying them and they're not in good shape, you're quickly whipping them into shape because you have a desire and a heart to provide affordable housing, but quality housing too, not just affordable. So I suspect that you're heading off a lot of these problems that these so-called slumlords, give your industry a bad reputation, because I know it happens in mine as well.
Right.
But I suspect that's a direct correlation to you and the way you run your properties. And that's what I try to explain to my clients all the time is if you run your business, no matter what it is, at a high level, it's usually a lot less headache because you're being proactive versus reactive. You're playing offense versus defense. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you said. There's no such thing as passive income. Somebody has to be working and providing service. Now, you can hire people to do it and hire a manager and hire a maintenance team, and then you can be passive yourself that way. But someone has to be providing the service, and that's what it all comes down to: providing, like I keep saying, just providing that service to. It's just not only good ethic; it's good business.
That's a great quote. It's not only good ethics, but it's good business.
So to kind of change focus a little bit. So I was looking through your Facebook and I noticed, so about a year ago, you all had a pretty bad tornado come through Jonesboro.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because, oh my gosh, that totally freaked me out.
Yeah.
It's like a worst case scenario. I mean, it can always be worse, obviously.
Yes, it was. And we're still recovering from it as a town. It was bad. It was, but thankfully, and we're very blessed to say that not a single person died. Like no fatalities whatsoever. I think there was only a handful of injuries, and I have no idea how that happened other than just say the grace of God, because that's the only explanation. But yeah, it was just a kind of a normal day, and we had storms coming in. But like you said, in Arkansas, it's kind of common, like, so you don't really get too worried about it. And then even tornado watches and tornado warnings in the springtime, we have those fairly often, so they don't really have the same effect that maybe it would have there. Like you just say, oh, okay, we'll keep an eye out, see what happens.
Yeah, up here they freak out. Like, what?
Right. So my youngest son, which he was, I guess around a year old, less than a year old at the time, we had just drove back from my parents, and Meredith and our oldest son, Max, was already home. And Meredith was texting me and saying, there's a tornado warning. The sirens are going off. And I just kind of was like, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. They always go off. Like, it's just, I'll be home in a second. So I got out, and I wasn't rushing or panicking or nothing. I just got the youngest boy out of the car, and the tornado sirens were going off. But then I got inside to turn on the weather, and our internet and cable was already out. So because of the storm. And so I finally got Meredith's phone to pull up, so my phone wasn't working. And on Facebook, our local TV station was live streaming the tornado coming through town. And then at the time, I looked out my front window and I saw it. It seemed like it was a long ways away, but apparently it was pretty close. So I got the kids. We went to the garage first. We opened the garage, and by the time we opened the garage, it was already there. So we turned around, ran back through the house, and we was coming back through the kitchen. The windows fall in, the back door blows in, the dog comes running. It looks like a scene from a movie.
Oh my goodness.
We all got in the bathtub, and it was just, crazy and loud seemed like forever. It was probably honestly 30 seconds at most. And then it was gone. But then just the whole neighborhood was devastated. Thankfully, our house was still standing, and we had substantial amount of damage. I had a shop building that was destroyed, and I had a home office outside there that was wiped out. Our house itself still was standing, but just a couple of doors down was just leveled. So we was very, very blessed. So now when you hear those sirens, do you have a little bit more of a... Yeah, you do. It's kind of, you pay attention closer now, just because you think your mind goes to how bad it could have been, if I wouldn't have, makes you take it a little more seriously. Right. Exactly. Take them, you just get too comfortable, with it. happening so often, but it is a very serious thing. And when those warnings go off, you should immediately take cover and not just see what happens.
Yeah. How scary. So this might be the wrong take to go, but did that make a lot of properties available? Some flipping properties? That's horrible. But
no, I've said the exact same thing multiple times. Like, now that we know everyone survived and there was no major injuries, it was actually a very good thing for, like, there's a lot of
deals out there.
Yeah. Or not just a deal, it's just so much money came into our economy from all the insurance. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars through insurance pumped in to our economy. And so now my neighborhood's getting all brand new houses built all around it. The bad thing is it's hard. Contractors are so busy now, it's hard to get them to do your stuff. Yeah. But it's been, it was good for the economy overall.
Good.
Well, there are blessings in everything, aren't there?
Right.
Wow. What a story. Thanks for sharing that with us. That is
that's crazy.
That is something else.
How did your kids, well, I know the one was only one, but your older son, did that cause nightmares and everything?
Not really. I'm proud of him because he's and still is a little bit, but he was like, even before this, just for whatever reason, he was and is petrified of storms, like just scared to death. And so I really thought that would be like a just, kind of send him over the edge, like just be very, actually went through one, but he was calm. And, of course the baby didn't really know what was going on. He was just giggling and fine, but Max was calm and everyone's fine. He says, Meredith was one that freaked out a little bit.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we're glad everyone's okay and that it ended up being a blessing. I'm sure there's a lot of adversity that your town is going through in that situation. So I know one of your things that you take tremendous pride in is, having weathered adversity like this tornado and many other things before it, and avoiding panic. You say is kind of one of your superpowers, if you will. What can you walk us through what that's like and give us a little bit of an idea of how, I mean, are these just things that you feel like you were just naturally born with? I don't know. I always call it grit is where I go, the word I use for overcoming adversity. But specifically, I think it's interesting that you mentioned avoiding panic. That's something that, a lot of us would like to do better at. I'm curious from a business perspective, what are your thoughts on that and how do you use that to your benefit and how do you avoid, panicking in situations like a crazy tornado is about to rip your house apart?
Right. It just, you said it, just staying calm, I think is the biggest thing. Cause I can go through plenty of examples of just how, like, in 2017, I was at that company I was working for. They downsized and I was laid off effective immediately. At that time I had, I believe, 12 doors. But I didn't miss a beat. Like that next Monday I was out looking for more property. I just never wanted to, that was my excuse to go into real estate full time, ground running, and just grew from there. So that, just saying, just not panicking or feeling sorry for yourself or just use that as an excuse to sit on the couch and say, poor me. Like he just, that was a blessing. If they wouldn't have fired me, I probably still would be working for them and I wouldn't be anywhere where I am today. So it's everything happens for a reason. Everything's a blessing, just constant stuff like that. Cause then I just went through a divorce with my first wife, and then got laid off from that job. And then about that same time, I met my current wife, Meredith. And then 2 weeks after, about a month after we was dating total, 2 weeks after I lost my job, she was in a car wreck and had multiple surgeries. And she was paralyzed from the waist down. They told us that she would never walk again and this and that. And then just which that's a whole nother podcast. All her, she's a superhero. She pushed through, and we was in rehab for about 10 months, I believe, total. And they wheeled her in to rehab on the bed, and then she walked out. So
Wow.
so that's a, blessing as well. And just her pushing through and all that. But just, but on the business side of that story, just during that whole time, I never stopped growing. I didn't use anything as an excuse to stop. I just keep pushing through.
Wow. I had no idea. Talk about a time to not panic that I probably would have panicked.
Right.
Wow. Wow. Kudos to you. Much, man. Wow.
Does she still have any reoccurring issues at all with that?
She still has a little trouble, but nothing, nothing compared to because, the doctors told us that even if she survived, she would absolutely never walk again. So she walks, and she, like I said, she maintains the house and takes care of the kids. And,
Wow.
So she's anything I do in business will never compare to her or that. She's the superhero.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. That's fantastic. So I have a few last questions for you, but we appreciate you taking the time to tell your story and to help motivate and inspire our audience. So thank you so much, because we know that, your time is valuable, and, it means a lot to Carla and I and to our audience that people like you take, valuable time out of your day to share your lessons and your story and your tips and tricks on overcoming adversity and not panicking, finding success and things like that. So one of the last questions I have for you is, you say that success is your obligation. I assume you mean in life, that we are obligated to I don't want to put words in your mouth. Can you explain what you mean by that?
That's actually a Grant Cardone quote that I've kind of stuck with.
I thought it sounded familiar.
It's just success is your duty, obligation, or responsibility. And that's just my mantra in life. Like it's my duty to provide and be successful for my family and my community and my company and build that legacy. Like, it's just my obligation. I have to do it. And I think when somebody says they just, we all know the people who say they just want to work, get by, and they pay for the house, just pay their bills, they're fine, And to me, to be honest, that's the most selfish thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, so you don't want to do things for others. You don't want to have a charity foundation one day. Like, to me, just success is your duty and obligation, responsibility.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly agree more. And that's a lot of what drives me. When you're younger, what drives you is just, I got to get away from this job that I hate sometimes, which I was in that place. And, once you accomplish that goal, then it's like, okay, well, what drives me now? I can absolutely relate to that. And I don't know about you, but I've always found too, that the more success that I find in life, the more I realize I'm capable of. And so I'm accomplishing things now in life and hopefully in my future that, the 25 or 20-year-old Dave Menz never would have dreamed would even be on my radar. It would have been so beyond the thought of comprehension that I never would have chased those things.
Everything that's easy was once hard. Like, you have to just start, do it the first time, then you grow with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of actually ties to my question. So I told you I kind of Facebook stalked you before this interview just to get to know a little bit about you and your family and everything. And I noticed kind of a theme on your why. What is your why? You constantly said, this is my why. What is your why? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, just creating that legacy for my boys, obviously, but just beyond that is creating that legacy of my company and just having a good footprint that even if we stop today, there's 70 plus stores that have been improved, and there's more than one tenant in each house. So several people have better living conditions. And so just expanding how big that number is going to be in 50 years, or when my sons take over 100 years from now, just building that footprint and long lasting legacy is what keeps me going.
I love your heart of a servant. I think that's what I find most impressive is I think there's a stereotype that entrepreneurs are all about the money, all about the personal success. But I feel like, Johnathan, you really have like that heart of a servant. Like, it's not about you. It's about serving others, and it's about being a role model for your sons. And I just find that very impressive.
Thank you. I think and it's true. I think there's just a direct correlation between that and, being a good business. Cause I don't really know how to make money. Like I don't have a printing press in my room. Like I don't.
Let's hope not. The FBI would be all over that.
Right. The only way I know how to make money is provide service. Money is the natural consequence of adding value. So you just keep adding value and helping, and it comes to you.
Yes, that's exactly what we found in our journey. And yeah, I can absolutely relate to that as well. So listen, where are you going next? What is Johnathan Russell and Premier Properties? What are you doing in the future? I mean, you've accomplished pretty awesome things, and I haven't asked you your age, but at a fairly young age, what are your ambitions? What are your goals and your dreams? Because as I mentioned a minute ago, I've learned that as I accomplish dreams that I never dreamed I would accomplish, I realize my ceiling has now been raised, and I find that obligation for success, which I also very much feel, has now been raised. So what are your ambitions, goals, and dreams for the future? What's next for you?
Yeah, I'm 34 currently, and just keep pushing, keep growing. Like the multifamily in another state, that's a huge step.
Sure.
So just really growing into the multifamily space, becoming better known there, possibly doing some syndication stuff in the future. So just really scaling that and scaling that growth, and just keep raising the bar. And I'm aware I'll never stop, and there's no magic number where I'll stop. It's just, I'll just keep going, and I'm at peace with that, just as long as I make sure I enjoy the ride as we go and celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
Do you have a partner or anything in your investment, or are you a one-man show?
On the multifamily, I do have a partner. So we own 32 of the doors are multifamily, and I have a partner who lives up in Missouri on those.
Okay.
So that's where you're planning on expanding. I mean, you already started, but I assume you see opportunity for growth there, which is why you partnered with somebody.
Absolutely. Just and that relationship just started. He bought some multifamily here in Jonesboro, and I was actually his realtor. And then he got tired of having to drive back and forth to Missouri to keep an eye on maintaining. And then we worked it out just where I just come in as a partner on them and take care of them for him. And we just been off the races since then. It's worked out well.
How far are the properties from Jonesboro to Missouri? Like, I don't know geographically.
The one we just bought, all the other ones are in Jonesboro, but the one we just bought is a small town of Charleston, Missouri, about 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
Jonesboro.
Gotcha.
That's a pretty good distance. Yeah, that would be hard to manage something 2 hours away, I would think.
Right.
But I always look at things too and say, yeah, 2 hours is a decent drive, no doubt. But I don't know why. The way my brain works, I always look at it and say, but you know what? I can drive there, get some things accomplished, whether it's meetings, closings, whatever,
right,
and still drive home. And I always look at things in the correlation of a day. Can I be at home with my wife and family that evening?
Right.
So just to me, that's what jumps out. I could drive there, be productive for 4, 5, 6 hours, drive home and have a full day and still, not be away from my family.
Right.
Well, he talks about, I know both of y'all talked about your vehicle as your mobile office.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. So listen, I want to close up. The last question that I have for you is a question that I'm probably going to ask a lot of our guests. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Just to sum it up. No, you're good. Just take massive action. And that's probably comes from another Grant Cardone thing. Just really just drive and just figure it out. Just do it. Like you can, especially in real estate, people get the paralysis by analysis quickly. Like, it's important to learn and study, but you can read all the books, you can do everything you want, but it literally means nothing if you don't follow with action. So just take action and do it. Like, it's nothing. There's very few things that are catastrophic. Like, you'll be okay. Just figure it out. You'll have bumps, but you just keep rolling.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So listen, how can our audience reach you if they want to connect with Johnathan Russell of Premier Properties? If they want to reach out to you and just connect with you on social media or what have you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, just all social media. I'm I'm most active on Facebook. I post almost daily on Facebook. So just my personal name, Johnathan Russell, and I also have a page, Johnathan Russell Investing. But just follow my personal page, and I'm sure we can put the link in the below there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, but listen, man, thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for giving us your valuable time to serve others, which is what this show is about, to inspire others, to teach others. Thanks for the real practical, actionable tips and tricks and lessons from your life. I'm honored to get to know you a little bit better through this. So thanks for taking the time to get to know me and Carla too.
Your story is truly an inspiration, and especially your wife too. Oh my gosh. And the tornado story. Oh my gosh. I just can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
Thank you all very much. I enjoyed it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Johnathan. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.